Alright, gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Baltic Saga, which is sadly drawing to a close. I will be going home soon. However, I want to give a few comments before I leave, and also because I love these backgrounds. Vilnius is truly a beautiful city, and it has touched my heart in more ways than I can possibly express on a YouTube channel. Well, anyways, well, not a lot of you, but as one of you correctly guessed from last video, I was in Riga. I was in the city of Riga, and I was speaking to this American fella who asked me, well, what are you doing in Riga? What are you doing in the Baltic states? And in a moment of flippancy, I said to him, I'm inspecting the frontiers of the empire. You know, it was a flippant comment, but then I realized that, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, I'm not doing it in any official capacity because I'm not an official person. I'm just some guy, some guy walking around Europe with a camera phone and giving his hungover opinions. However, I also, now later on, I'm speaking to this friend from Latvia, saying, yeah, this is actually the frontiers. And he said, wow, I never really thought about this because I've lived here my entire life, but yeah, this is the frontier of the civilized world, right on the because right across the border you have Mordor. You're right, you have the land of the Dark Lord, where the orcs roam, and the One Ring was forged, I suppose. But Europeans, I don't think, understand the degree of civilizational clash we're experiencing here. You know, we have this sort of notion that, oh, the war in Ukraine is just some conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and of course it is a conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and it is a sort of Hegelian type dialectic about how an Eastern Slavic polity should be ordered. But it is a Hegelian dialectic which juxtaposes two continentally disparate ideas on how an Eastern Slavic polity should be ordered. Right? It puts forth the Asian or Eurasian thesis, which is Russian, which is authoritarian, centralized. You could call it despotic, where the state subsumes a man, where individual achievement is essentially crushed, right? And then you have the European thesis of an Eastern Slavic polity, right? The Cossack thesis of an Eastern Slavic polity, which presupposes that a state should be decentralized, that the state emanates from the people, from the will of the people, right? And this could be interpreted in different ways. The Cossack hetmanate was definitely a different state from the Republic of Ukraine today, but it is a fundamentally European way of ordering states. Now, this is not to say that non-European states cannot order themselves in this way, but this is continentally where the idea came from, and it is now in contrast with this opposing idea at the edge of European civilization, in the liminal spaces of the Eurasian steppe, which are Ukraine and Russia. This is where the lines of conflicts are drawn. And so this is not just a clash of two nations. This is a clash of two civilizations, of West and East. As I've always said, this conflict is a conflict between all of Europe and all of Asia, with exceptions, because unfortunately, there's always some European states which, for whatever reason, side with the enemy. In our lifetime, it has been Hungary, it has been to a lesser degree Slovakia and Serbia, and increasingly the United States, which should be concerning, given that the United States is the most powerful Western state, the wealthiest. I hesitate to say the greatest after the theatrics of the past 7 months, but it is definitely up there, and as far as European and European descended states come. And of course, in Asia, Ukraine has had some allies. The European cause has had some allies. I would say that Japan is doing good enough. They could be doing more, but then again, so could we. So could every other European state. The Koreans, they have definitely disappointed, but at least they're not aiding the enemy. And Turkey, which I do not consider a European state, it's something I consider an Asiatic state. Nevertheless, they have more or less expressed support for Ukraine's sovereignty. Now, obviously, they have selfish motives for this, and frankly, everyone does. Right here in the Baltic states, people support Ukraine not only because it's the right thing to do, and not only because they belong to European civilization and would like to see the triumph of Europe over Asia, but also because by breaking Russia's back, the Baltic states will be made safer. Like if someone else eliminates your main geopolitical threat, yeah, that's an unequivocally good thing for Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Now, and that's where it hit me. Basically, I was speaking to my friend, right, and he said, well, I never thought of this place as being the frontier. And he was talking about Latvia, but this also applies to Lithuania. And we sort of lump these two countries together, like, because they are Baltic speaking. We speak of them as the Baltic states. But as someone who spent the past month in Lithuania and the past week in Latvia, I will tell you that there's a lot of differences. They're a little difficult to explain, but the vibe is very different between the two countries. And it's you can also see the similarities in cuisine, definitely. But yeah, it's these two countries have a lot of internal differences. I didn't know until yesterday that the languages are not even mutually intelligible, which is to me very weird. But it is what it is, I guess. But fundamentally, yeah, my friend did not think about Latvia as a frontier state, because here's the thing. The frontier is always, by definition, you could say, messy. The frontier is a place of push and pull between the empires, the civilizations, the worlds. Whereas, well, Latvia and Lithuania, they're decisively European. There is no Baltic dialectic to see whether they should belong to the east or to the west. I mean, if you walk through Vilnius, or if you walk through Riga, right, or I've never been to Estonia, but I suppose if you walk through Tallinn, and if you walk through any of the smaller cities of Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia, you are going to see European cities. You're going to see a European attitude towards life. You're going to see a European attitude towards government. You have people very openly challenging the government in these countries, right, without fear of reprisal. I believe that during my stay here, the Lithuanian prime minister was forced to resign over a corruption scandal, and that's a sign of a healthy polity, when politicians actually suffer consequences for the bad shit they do. There is no such thing as corruption scandals in Russia or China. In Russia and China, they use these things cynically in order to eliminate political competition. But that's not how this works in Europe. That's not how it works in Lithuania. But the frontier, the real frontier, the frontier in the philosophical sense, the place of dialectical clash, is indeed the land of the East Slavic nations, those being Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. And of course, the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine because that's the only place where the battle could be fought between these ideas in the Hegelian sense. And of course, Hegel, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, German philosopher, he said that ideas don't really fight in debate. There is no marketplace of idea. Ideas fight by animating people, and then these people clash violently on battlefields. Ideas animate states. States wage war. You know, ideas animate people. People staff states. States wage war. This is how the dialectic of idea goes on in the Hegelian sense. It is fundamentally expressed by state-on-state conflict. And this is essentially, there is a battle raging on the plains of eastern Ukraine for not only the future of the East Slavic nations, how they should be ordered, but also a battle for a struggle for dominance between European and Asian civilization. This is very far from some distant conflict over provinces. And I'm frankly tired of people framing it as this is about that region, or this is about resources, or this is about, I don't know, it's going to end in a land swap. It does not end until either the Ukrainian state or Russian state is destroyed. It ends with symbolic occupation of one capital or the other. It ends with the execution of one leader or the other. One of the Vladimirs, Zelensky or Putin, is going to have his head on a spike in order to end this war. That's the only end of this war. There is no other end of this war, because this is not a war over territory. This is a clash of civilizations which is trying to resolve a central question posed by Mr. Nikolai Gogol, very famous author of The Nose, which is my favorite short story. Where are you going, Rus? You know, he's asking this question of all the Rus peoples. Now, he was ethnically Ukrainian, writing in Russian, so he's probably asking himself, too, where are you going? With what... I don't remember the exact passage, but it involved this sort of demonic speed and this out-of-control three-horse sleigh rushing into the unknown. Well, this war is to answer that question. Where will the lands and people of Rus go? Will they join Asia, or will they remain part of Europe? And that is not a question of swapping territory, and it's not a question of inspecting frontiers. That is a question that has to be answered in the heart, and Europe better start giving answers of the heart. Thank you for joining me in this spelunking session through the recesses of the Hegelian mind, and I guess I'll see you next time.